Hello, my dear students. Hope all of you are fine. Today we're going to have chapter 8 and it's entitled Knitting and More Knitting. Let's discover more ideas. The setting, as we all know, it is in Paris, in Saint Antoine Street, and then you're going to go to the Garret, and the last place will be the one shop one more time of Monsieur and Madame Defarge. We're going to have some main characters. John Barsad, if you still remember him, the spy. Monsieur and Madame Defarge. John Barsad one more time because you're gonna know more about him. That's why he's the major one for me. And some Jacks as well as the road repairer. The road repairer or the road mender was converted, he was one of the what? One of the Jacks by Monsieur Defarge. The road repairer, by the way, let me just tell you one idea, that Gaspard has been or was well hidden, let me say, by Monsieur Defarge in a very safe place after killing the Marquis. But for his bad luck, or unluckily, okay, he doesn't have a luck, the French, let's say, prisoners or the French government, they were able to find him and arrest him. They found him because, if you still remember that, the road repairer, he gave full description of that person whom he had seen hiding himself under the Marquis carriage. And because of that kind of description, they were able to find him and arrest him. Not only finding and arresting him, but he was severely executed or killed. He was killed in a poor village, okay, or like a village, and that village was somehow far away from Saint Antoine. Who lived in that poor village? He was the road repairer. So the road repairer had witnessed by his own eyes the execution of Gaspard. That's why Monsieur Defarge himself, like you can see here, he chose the road repairer to be one of the Jacks. Why? Because he had witnessed the execution of Gaspard. Okay? The second main idea also that we have John Barsad, the spy. He was sent to Saint Antoine Street to trap Monsieur and Madame Defarge. Also, John Barsad, he will try to trap Madame and Monsieur Defarge for several times. He would fail in some times, and he's going to be successful only for once. And the end of the chapter will be that Darnay's life was going to be in great danger if he ever stepped inside France again for any reason. Okay, here are the main ideas or the main incidents of the chapter. Let's start and elaborate each and every idea. Monsieur Defarge, one day, he entered the wine shop and he was accompanied by the road repairer who had been changed to be one of the Jacks, like I said before. Who was inside the wine shop? We have Madame Defarge as usual and some of the Jacks. Monsieur Defarge, once he entered, he greeted the Jacks by saying, "Good afternoon, men," and all of them replied just at once. He said, "Today is a bad weather," so they looked at each other and they started leaving the wine shop one after another. They ceased talking, stopped talking, and they kept leaving the wine shop. So inside the wine shop, we have Madame Defarge, Monsieur Defarge, and the road repairer. Okay. Once he finished his meal, the road repairer, and his wine that was served by Madame Defarge, Monsieur Defarge, he promised him that he will give him an accommodation. What's accommodation? A place to stay in. And that accommodation will be the garret. Who used to be in the garret? As we all know, he used to be Dr. Alexander Minette. He was in the garret. So once he finished eating, Monsieur Defarge, he took the road repairer and they went to where? To the garret. When they went to the garret, the Jacks were waiting for Monsieur Defarge as well as for the road repairer. The road repairer, when Monsieur Defarge entered, first of all, he introduced the road repairer to the Jacks and also the Jacks to the road repairer. What did he say? He said, "Here is Jack number 1, Jack 2, Jack 3, I, Monsieur Defarge, Jack 4. Men, here is Jack number 5. So which means that the road repairer will be Jack number 5. All of them sat in front of him, and the road repairer, he had to narrate to all of them how Gaspard was killed. While he was narrating how Gaspard was killed, he was just acting, using his body language. And he was a very poor man, having like a kind of a blue cap over his head, and he was completely sweating. The road repairer, he started narrating how he witnessed, how he saw by his 2 eyes the execution of Gaspard, who was well hidden for 1 year. And he was kept, Gaspard, as a prisoner in a cage for some days. He said that 6 French soldiers kept dragging him, like to drag someone. And Gaspard was covered in blood until they reached the execution place. In that kind of a poor village, I have like a fountain. That's a fountain. If you can see, just kind of a fountain. And that's what I called gallows. That's a kind of a gallows. So the soldiers, they imprisoned him, Gaspard, in a kind of like a cage for some days, as if he was a sort of an animal. That was a sort of degradation, humiliation for Gaspard, okay? And then what did they do? They built great gallows, that's kind of a gallows, by the fountain in the village. On the top of the gallows, they fixed a knife pointing upwards, okay? They hang Gaspard there 40 feet high, can you imagine? And they left him like dangling, hanging over the fountain, poisoning the water. Because when Gaspard was killed or executed, the blood kept on running all over from Gaspard's body down to the water in the fountain. And the water was the only source of clean water. That fountain was the only source of clean water for the villagers. They have no source to get good water or clean water. So even women and children, they were afraid to come near the water because the water was completely red because of the blood of Gaspard. When he finished narrating what he was just saying, they asked him, the Jacks, they asked the road repairer to leave the garret somehow. He left the garret and they kept talking, discussing how they should take revenge for Gaspard. And they decided as a sort of revenge to exterminate, like to kill all the upper class, all the race of who? Mainly of the Evermond. Who was the last member of the Evermond family? Simply his Charles Darnley. And also they're gonna burn the chateau when the revolution would break out. Here is like we are inside the wine shop, you just can see the wine shop. Okay, after that instance, a while, Monsieur Defarge, he learned from a friend, one of the Jacks in the police, in the French police, that a spy, and that spy, his name is Jean Barsad, was going to be sent to Saint Antoine Street. Sent by who? By the French government. The French government, they needed to know, okay, who the Jacks were, okay, and also have more information. They had a kind of doubt, okay, concerning Monsieur and Madame Defarge, but they don't have any solid evidence. So they decided to try to trap Monsieur and Madame Defarge by sending a lot of spies. But the spy that will be sent right now will be Jean Barsad. Okay, and that's, Jack, he told Monsieur Defarge that the spy name was Jean Barsad, and he was about 40 years old, and he gave him full description of him. Monsieur Defarge, he left him, and he went to his wife inside, of course, the wine shop, and he gave her full description of Jean Barsad. He told her that they would send, that the French government would send a spy to Saint Antoine. She said, a spy? What's his name? He said Barsad. She said, no, his first name. He said Jean Barsad. She said, Jean Barsad. He said, by the way, he's English. He's not a kind of a Frenchman. She said, do you know how does he look like? He said, yes. He told her he's about 40 years old, rather handsome, dark, and so on. She said, don't worry, I know, I have like a portrait for him. By the way, Madame Defarge, she had a sharp memory, as we all know. One day also, inside the wine shop, I have some of the Jacks drinking wine as usual, as well as Madame Defarge behind the counter knitting. Who entered or who reached or who showed up? He was the spy. And who's the spy? He was Jean Barsad. When Jean Barsad entered the wine shop, she looked at him and she kept like recalling back. She said, that's the spy, 40 years old, how many inches? Okay, that's Jean Barsad. So what did she do? There was a kind of a rose in front of her, a red rose. She picked up the rose and she inserted the rose inside her own hair. When the Jacks inside the wine shop, they saw the red rose, they understood that that was a sign or a communication that we have a spy or we have a stranger inside the wine shop, and they had to leave at once. So they left the wine shop one after the other. Inside the wine shop, I have only the spy as well as Madame Defarge. The spy, who is John Versad, he asked for water and he asked for a brandy. And a brandy, I mean like a wine. When he kept just drinking, he complimented Madame Defarge that she served a great kind of a brandy, a good quality. And also which is so comic, or like we call it an irony of fate, that he complimented Madame Defarge, flattered her that she kept on knitting so fast. By the way, he couldn't see her registry. He couldn't see it. But he could see the movement of her own hands, that she was knitting. And he said that she is knitting so fast. When he was complimenting her own knitting, okay, the speed of her knitting, I mean, she was knitting at that time his name, John Versad, which is so comic. He's gonna be killed. He tried to trap Madame Defarge how many times? Several times. He tried to track any information he could. He was trying to convince the Defarges, Monsieur and Madame Defarge, to speak against the aristocrats. So he told Madame Defarge that, first of all, he told her that people here in Saint Antoine were badly treated and they were very miserable, poor, oppressed. But Madame Defarge, she told him that it was him who said so. She corrected him because he was trying to do what? He was trying to add words to what she said, trying to track her down, put words on her own tongue. But she was very alert. She never hesitated one single moment. She never gave him clear information or clear answer. She was as tough as old boot, stubborn person. That's the first time in which he failed. The second time, he tried to figure out the people's feelings towards Gasper's death. Do they feel sorry about him? What kind of feelings or execution? And once more, he was also disappointed. She didn't tell him. The last time, because Madame Defarge replied by saying that Gasper deserved to be executed. Why? Because he killed someone, so he had to be killed. What she was saying was a lie. Of course, she felt sorry for Gasper, but she would never show her pity for Gasper in front of the spy. Okay. The last time it was when Monsieur Defarge, he returned back. He entered the wine shop, and the spy, I mean John Versad, greet him, welcome him by the name of Jack. For how many times? Twice. But Monsieur Defarge was alert. Okay, what did he say? He told him that his name was Ernest Defarge, and he had mistaken him for someone else. That's not his name. Versad was trying to cover his disappointment, okay, his irritation. He even asked them about Dr. Manette and Lucy Manette, and they replied that they knew nothing about them ever, and that they had received a letter or two from them, and that was all. Versad was really disappointed as he didn't hit his target. What was his target? Let's see. His target was to trap Monsieur and Madame Defarge, to encourage Madame Defarge and Monsieur Defarge to speak against the French aristocrats, to try to track any sort of information he could, to try to prove that Monsieur and Madame Defarge were some of the Jacks or were, okay, just any information about the Jacks. In each and every time he was disappointed, he never hit his target. Why? That's because Monsieur and Madame Defarge, they were so sane, rational, wise, and alert. But unfortunately, he succeeded just for one time. Let's see that time. He succeeded once when he informed them, I mean Monsieur and Madame Defarge, that Lucy Manette was going to get married to the nephew of the Marquis, Charles Darnay. Okay, whom poor Gaspard had been murdered or executed. The new Marquis, who was Charles Darnay, was living in London, okay, under the name of Charles Darnay. Madame Defarge, let's see the reaction, she kept knitting, but the news had a great impact on her husband, who is Monsieur Defarge, whose hand trembled like shake when he was just lighting a pipe. John Versad, the spy, noticed this reaction and he felt satisfied. When the spy left the wine shop, Monsieur Deforge was so stressed like, annoyed. Why annoyed? Because he cared so much for the Manette's family. About that strange news, he wondered whether the news was true or false. Monsieur Deforge, he prayed God to keep Charles Darnay away from France when the French Revolution broke out. For who? For the sake of Lucy and Dr. Manette. He didn't want, deep inside his heart, he didn't want Charles Darnay to be executed. Monsieur Deforge was so loyal, devoted to his master, and by his master, of course, Dr. Manette. That was the reaction of who? Of Monsieur Deforge. How about Madame Deforge? Madame Deforge replied that if Charles' destiny, fate, would lead him, it would lead him to where he was to go. And then she began to knit the name of Charles Darnay beside the name of John Barsad. She said that if Darnay's fate was to come to France, he would come to France. And if he's going to come to France, that will be his end. That he would die. By the way, Madame Deforge, she had strong kind of feelings, hatred feelings and grudge towards the aristocrats all, but mainly or precisely against the Evermont family. She had her reasons, by the way. So even if Charles Darnay was innocent, if he was one of the French aristocrats, but he was innocent, he was unlike his family member, that was not a good excuse for her. For her own power of revenge, she had to take revenge from Charles Darnay by any means. So his name, Darnay's name, was registered, because he was the nephew of the Marquis. If you're going to talk more about Madame Deforge was completely merciless. She had no mercy. And she was carried away with her strong feelings of taking revenge and grudge. She had great hatred towards who? The aristocrats all. Despite the fact that she knew that Charles Darnay was innocent, she wanted to take revenge from him simply because he was the nephew of the Marquis. Which means that Darnay's life would be in great danger if he ever stepped inside France. Thank you all, my dear students, and that's the end of chapter 8.